Welcome to our deep dive into the life of Augustus.
Rome's first emperor,
We're going beyond the typical greatest hits of his reign.
using the Wikipedia article about him to uncover some truly fascinating details.
Wait.
What always strikes me about Augustus is how carefully he constructed his image.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about power.
Right.
It was about perception.
Right. It wasn't even born Augustus.
Exactly.
He started as Gaius Octavius, not exactly a name that echoes through history.
Exactly. But that seemingly ordinary beginning makes his rise even more remarkable.
Right.
Each name he adopted, Octavian, Caesar, and finally, Augustus tells a story about his calculated ascent.
So these name changes weren't just for fun, they were strategic.
Oh, absolutely.
What message was he sending with Augustus, the name he ultimately chose?
It's a title laden with religious connotations,
Okay.
awarded by the Senate.
Uh-huh.
By accepting it, he positioned himself as a leader chosen by the gods, yet also respectful of traditional Roman institutions.
Very clever. But how did this seemingly ordinary guy even get into a position to become emperor in the first place?
Yeah.
His great-uncle Julius Caesar being assassinated seems like a pretty big turning point.
Imagine being a teenager and suddenly inheriting not just wealth, but the legacy of the most powerful man in Rome. Talk about pressure.
Yeah, the article mentions some shady dealings around that inheritance.
Right.
Even whispers that Octavian might have manipulated his way into becoming Caesar's heir. Is there any truth to those rumors?
It's hard to say for sure political mudslinging was common back then.
Right.
But what is clear is that Caesar's assassination thrust young Octavian into the spotlight.
Okay.
He had to learn to navigate Roman politics quickly and ruthlessly.
So did he have like a knack for that?
We'll take, for instance, how he appropriated funds meant for a war with Parthia.
Wow, okay, so he sounds pretty ambitious. Redirecting those resources for his own rise to power.
Exactly.
Was this when the conflict with Mark Antony started?
Their rivalry was complex, a blend of personal ambition and clashing visions for Rome.
Right.
But you're right.
Yeah.
This financial maneuvering marked an early point of friction between them. Both men needed resources and loyal followers to survive the turbulent aftermath of Caesar's death.
Okay, so the article talks about the second triumvirate formed between Octavian, Antony, and Marcus Lepidus.
Right.
This wasn't just a friendly alliance, was it?
Not at all to consolidate their power. They unleashed the proscriptions.
Wow.
A chilling example of how brutal Roman politics could be.
Oh.
They declared hundreds of their opponents enemies of the state, resulting in executions and property seizures.
It's interesting how history often remembers Augustus as this wise, peace-loving emperor.
Right.
But his early years were anything but peaceful.
Yeah, it's a crucial reminder that power is often gained through violence.
Right.
The proscriptions were a calculated move to eliminate rivals and instill fear.
Yeah.
Augustus may have presented himself as a restorer of peace later on, but his path to the top was paved with bloodshed. This complexity makes him even more fascinating, don't you think?
Absolutely. So, how did he go from teenage heir to ruthless politician and finally to emperor?
Right.
The article mentions a series of battles. Philippi, Perugia, Nolocus. Was his rise a slow burn, or were there moments that dramatically shifted the balance of power?
Each conflict had its own significance.
Okay.
But one key turning point was the Battle of Actium in 31 BC.
Okay.
This was a naval showdown for control of the Roman world.
Oh, wow.
Octavian versus Mark Antony and Cleopatra.
High stakes, and the result?
A decisive victory for Octavian, Antony, and Cleopatra's forces were crushed,
Oh, wow.
leaving him as the sole ruler of Rome.
So at that point, it's like
Right.
game over.
It's at this moment that his political genius truly shines.
Okay.
Instead of immediately declaring himself emperor, he takes a different approach.
He starts to carefully cultivate that image of a restorer of the Republic.
Precisely, he understood the importance of perception. Rome had just endured decades of civil war.
Right.
The last thing people wanted was another dictator, even if he brought stability.
So he had to be clever about how he transitioned to a position of absolute power.
Exactly.
The article calls this the first settlement. What did that actually look like?
In 27 BC, in a grand public display, Octavian returned power to the Senate.
Wow.
He gave up direct control of provinces and armies.
Really?
But here's the brilliance. He retained the loyalty of his soldiers, and his immense wealth ensured continued influence.
He knew true power wasn't just about titles and official positions,
Right.
but about deeper levers of control.
Exactly. And it worked.
Wow.
The Senate, probably grateful for stability, granted him the title Augustus.
Okay.
More than just a name.
Uh-huh.
It implied divine favor.
A masterful stroke of political theater.
Right.
He's emperor in all but name.
He also adopted the title Princeps Senatus,
Okay.
meaning first citizen.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a clever choice. He leads the Senate, shaping its agenda, but without the overt trappings of a king.
But this wasn't all smooth sailing, was it?
Right.
The article mentions challenges and conspiracies he had to face. Tell us about those.
Yeah. Maintaining power can be even trickier than acquiring it.
Oh, I bet.
And this so-called first settlement had its vulnerabilities.
Okay, the article mentions a second settlement.
Yes.
Was that Augustus's response to these emerging challenges?
Exactly. Several factors prompted it.
Okay.
In 23 BC, Augustus fell seriously ill.
No, wow.
This wasn't just a personal health crisis.
Uh-huh.
The stability of Rome was now tied to one man's life.
Right.
It forced the issue of succession to the forefront.
And succession in a system that wasn't quite a monarchy is complicated.
Very.
Who are the main contenders vying for position during this time?
It's like a real-life family drama unfolding on the world stage.
Okay.
Augustus's nephew Marcellus was an early favorite.
Uh-huh.
Then there was his trusted general, Agrippa,
Right.
and of course his wife Livia,
Yeah.
a shrewd political operator in her own right.
The article hints that Livia played a significant role,
Absolutely.
pushing for her own sons from a previous marriage, Tiberius and Drusus.
Yes.
Was Augustus trying to create a dynasty?
He was certainly laying the groundwork,
Yeah.
but he couldn't be seen as simply handing power to a chosen heir.
Right.
That would have been too monarchical and risked alienating those who still clung to the ideals of the Republic.
Yeah. So how did he navigate this succession puzzle while maintaining the illusion of Republican tradition?
He used a mix of strategic marriages and military appointments,
Okay.
always trying to balance ambition with the appearance of consensus.
Right.
After Marcellus's untimely death, he married his daughter Julia to Agrippa,
Oh, wow.
securing the loyalty of his most powerful general.
Okay.
They had several sons,
Mm.
who Augustus then adopted as his own heirs.
It's fascinating how personal relationships were woven into the fabric of power in ancient Rome.
Absolutely. These weren't just family matters. They were political alliances with huge implications.
Right.
But fate, as it often does, intervened. Both of those sons died young, forcing Augustus to reconsider his options.
What about Tiberius and Drusus, Livia's sons?
Right.
The article suggests they were initially sidelined but then came back into the picture.
Augustus gave them both important military commands,
Okay.
testing their abilities and showcasing them to the Roman people.
Right.
But tragedy struck again when Drusus died in a riding accident.
Oh, wow.
This shifted the focus to Tiberius,
Uh-huh.
who perhaps reluctantly stepped into the role of heir apparent.
So it sounds like a combination of careful planning and reacting to unforeseen events.
Definitely.
Was there any pushback against this growing concentration of power in Augustus's hands?
There were definitely challenges. The second settlement,
Okay.
which formally solidified Augustus's authority,
Uh-huh.
was partly prompted by an incident known as the Marcus Primus affair.
The article doesn't go into much detail about this, what happened.
It was a legal case involving a former governor accused of waging an unauthorized war.
Okay.
The shocking claim emerged that he was acting on secret orders from Augustus himself.
Oh, wow. That would undermine the whole restore of the Republic image he'd so carefully crafted. How did Augustus react?
He showed up at the trial, uninvited,
What?
claiming to be acting in the public interest.
Oh, wow.
He denied any involvement under oath,
Uh-huh.
but the incident raised doubts and tarnished his reputation.
Talk about damage control.
Right.
So this affair, coupled with his ongoing health issues, led to the second settlement, a more formal acknowledgement of his supreme authority. What did that entail?
In essence,
Yeah.
it gave him the legal framework to exercise power openly
Okay.
while still preserving a veneer of Republican legitimacy.
So he's kind of walking a tightrope.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was granted imperium proconsular meus,
Okay.
giving him authority over all Roman provinces, not just specific ones.
That's a huge expansion of his control. What else did he gain from this second settlement?
He also received tribunician powers for life.
Okay.
This meant he could convene the Senate, propose laws,
Mhm.
and even veto their decisions.
Wow.
In practice, he was untouchable.
So at this point, it's like he's
Yeah.
really solidified his power.
But challenges still arose.
Oh, really?
Take the conspiracy of Phanius Caepio, for example.
The article just mentions it briefly. Was this a serious threat to Augustus's rule?
It's an example of how even a seemingly unassailable ruler still faces opposition.
Right.
This plot involved several high-ranking individuals,
Uh-huh.
including a consul who had openly criticized Augustus.
Oh, wow.
They were swiftly tried in absentia,
Okay.
sentenced to death,
Wow.
and executed upon capture.
A reminder that absolute power doesn't eliminate all dissent. How did Augustus maintain his image as a champion of the people while crushing his enemies so ruthlessly?
It's a classic balancing act.
Yeah.
He invested heavily in public works,
Okay.
improving infrastructure,
Uh-huh.
and staging grand spectacles to entertain the masses.
Right.
Bread and circuses, as the saying goes.
But timeless tactic for maintaining public favor.
Exactly, and Augustus was a master of it.
Yeah.
He understood the power of symbols. Think about the statues erected throughout Rome,
Okay.
depicting him as youthful and godlike.
Right.
This wasn't just art.
Mhm.
It was propaganda reinforcing his image as a divinely chosen leader.
Okay, so he was shrewd, ambitious,
Yes.
sometimes ruthless,
Mm-hmm.
and a master of public image. But beyond simply holding on to power, what was his actual impact on the Roman Empire?
His reign ushered in a period known as the Pax Romana,
Okay.
literally Roman peace.
Uh,
Think about it. He came to power after decades of bloody civil war.
right.
His focus shifted to consolidating and expanding Roman control through both military campaigns and strategic diplomacy.
Okay.
This period of relative stability lasted for over 2 centuries.
Wow, the article details his military conquests.
Right.
He expanded Roman territory significantly,
Yeah.
extending their control across Europe and North Africa, but it wasn't all victories, was it?
Right.
The Battle of Teutoburg Forest comes to mind.
That was a devastating defeat.
Yeah.
3 Roman legions wiped out by Germanic tribes. But it's also revealing of Augustus's pragmatism.
Okay.
He recognized the limits of Roman power,
Right.
choosing to consolidate existing holdings rather than pursuing endless expansion.
The article mentions diplomatic successes as well, like securing a peace treaty with the Parthian Empire,
Mm-hmm.
and even retrieving Roman battle standards lost in earlier conflicts.
Those were huge symbolic victories.
Yeah.
They reinforced Augustus's image as a powerful and respected leader on the world stage,
Right.
demonstrating that he could achieve his goals through negotiation as well as force.
He was clearly a complex figure,
Hmm.
capable of both ruthlessness and strategic brilliance.
Yes.
He brought stability, expanded the empire,
Right.
and reshaped Roman society.
Hmm.
But as with any ruler, the question of succession is crucial. What happened after Augustus? It's interesting how, after all that maneuvering
Right.
with potential heirs,
Oh, yeah.
Augustus ended up turning to Tiberius, the stepson he'd initially seemed to sideline.
Life is full of unexpected twists.
Hmm.
Remember, Tiberius had even gone into self-imposed exile at one point,
Oh, wow.
possibly due to friction with Augustus and Livia.
But after the deaths of those other potential heirs,
Right.
Augustus had to make a choice. Recalling Tiberius and formally adopting him as heir must have been a difficult decision.
Imagine the family dynamics at play. Augustus was no stranger to making cold calculations for the good of Rome.
Right.
But choosing Tiberius also meant acknowledging Livia's influence.
The article mentions some rather dramatic rumors surrounding Augustus's death. Whispers of poisoning by Livia to ensure Tiberius's accession. Is there any historical basis for these claims?
Those rumors likely stem from the political intrigue that often surrounded successions.
Right.
It's easy to imagine how whispers and accusations would swirl,
Mm.
especially given Livia's ambition and the stakes involved.
Yeah.
Historians tend to view those poisoning claims with a healthy dose of skepticism, though.
Okay, so Augustus dies in 14 AD at the age of 75.
Right.
Tiberius becomes the second Roman emperor, but what about Augustus's lasting legacy?
Right.
He left behind more than just a successor, didn't he?
He fundamentally reshaped Roman society.
Okay.
We've talked about his political genius, but his administrative reforms were equally significant.
Like what?
He established a standing army,
Uh-huh.
professionalized the Praetorian Guard,
Okay.
created police and fire services for Rome,
Wow.
overhauled the tax system.
It's like he was building the foundations for an empire, not just ruling one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He transformed the city of Rome, too.
Yeah.
The article mentions his ambitious building projects, temples, forums, aqueducts.
Uh-huh.
He famously said he found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble.
Wow.
But more importantly, he laid the groundwork for the Pax Romana, a period of unprecedented peace and prosperity.
He went from inheriting a republic teetering on the brink of collapse to leaving behind an empire that would dominate the Mediterranean world for centuries.
It's incredible.
It's an incredible story.
He was a master strategist,
Yeah.
a shrewd politician, a ruthless operator when necessary, and a brilliant image maker. Augustus understood the levers of power. But he also recognized the need for systems and institutions that would outlast any individual.
That's what makes him such an enduring figure in history.
Yeah.
He wasn't just a powerful ruler, he was a builder, an architect of a new era.
But even the most successful leaders have their critics.
Right.
The article points out that some historians view him as an autocrat who effectively dismantled the Roman Republic, paving the way for emperors who would become increasingly tyrannical.
It's a reminder that even the most positive legacies can have unintended consequences.
History is rarely simple. Augustus was a complex figure operating within a specific historical context.
Yeah.
His actions stabilized Rome and ushered in an era of peace and prosperity, but they also set the stage for the eventual decline of the Republic.
Right.
Whether he was a hero, a villain, or something in between is a question each of us must grapple with.
Our deep dive into Augustus has been fascinating. He was more than just a name in a history book. He was a man of ambition, calculation, and ultimately great impact. His rise to power, his political maneuvering, his lasting legacy. It's a reminder that individuals can shape the course of history both for good and for ill. What do you think, had Augustus lived in a different era, would he still have risen to such heights, or was he uniquely suited to the tumultuous times in which he lived?
That's an intriguing question to consider. Perhaps the chaos of the late Republic was the crucible that forged his character and provided the opportunities he so skillfully exploited, or maybe his ambition and political talent would have found an outlet in any era. It's a testament to his enduring fascination that we're still debating his motives and legacy centuries later.